Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today I am going to discuss another very important topic, that is orbital cellulitis and its management or treatment. Orbital cellulitis is an infection of the soft tissue of orbit behind the orbital septum. If it is in front of the orbital septum, this is known as preseptal cellulitis. 11% of cases of orbital cellulitis results in visual loss, so the prompt diagnosis and proper management are essential for curing the patient and orbital cellulitis. A brief description about the anatomy of the orbit. Orbital septum extends vertically from the periosteum of the orbital rim to the levator aponeurosis in the upper eyelid. It extends to the inferior border of the tarsal plate in the lower eyelid. So this one here, it extends from periosteum to the lower border of the inferior tarsal plate, and from here it is extending from the periosteum to the upper border of the superior tarsal plate. Medial orbital wall is thin and perforated by valveless blood vessels, nerves, and numerous defects. This is important, valveless. So there is a direct and easy communication of the microorganisms, easy access. It allows, so it's mentioned here also, it allows easy communication of infectious material between ethmoid air cells and subperiosteal orbital space. Incomplete and thin intermuscular fascia posteriorly allows easy extension between extraconal and intraconal orbital space. As far as the etiology is concerned, extension of infection from periorbital structures, most commonly from the paranasal sinuses. These are the sinuses. This is maxillary sinus, and these are the turbinates, and these are the small ethmoid sinuses. So extension of infection from the periorbital structures, mostly from the paranasal sinuses, face and globe, and the lacrimal sac. It may follow osteomyelitis of the facial bones, phlebitis of the facial vein, and dental infection. Ethmoid sinusitis account for more than 90% of the cases of orbital cellulitis in all age groups. Aerobic non-spore forming bacteria are frequently responsible microorganisms. Anaerobes, commonly bacteroids species, are the most common causative agents in cases of orbital cellulitis caused by maxillary sinusitis, which is directly caused by the dental infection. And the cases which stem from dacryocystitis are the most commonly caused by Staph aureus, Strep pneumoniae, Strep pyogenes, and non-typable Haemophilus influenzae. Then there can be traumatic orbital cellulitis. This can be because of direct inoculation of orbit from trauma or surgery. Orbital cellulitis may be caused by any injury perforating the orbital septum. So until unless the orbital septum is pierced, there are less chances of orbital cellulitis. So any trauma which is not perforating or which is interior to the orbital septum rarely leads to the orbital cellulitis. That will cause preseptal cellulitis. Orbital inflammation may occur within 48 to 72 hours after injury. It may be delayed for months in cases of retained intraorbital foreign bodies. Orbital cellulitis can be precipitated by surgical procedures like orbital decompression, which we do sometimes in cases of severe proptosis, dacryocystoienostomy, that is DCR, simple surgeries of eyelid, strabismus surgery, and retinal surgeries like retinal attachment surgeries. There can be hematogenous spread by bacteremia also, and that is caused by Streptococcus species, Staph aureus, and Haemophilus influenzae. Type B are the most common bacterial causes of orbital cellulitis. It can be polymicrobial also. Infections are most common in patients 16 years or above. Mucor and aspergillosis species are responsible for fungal cases of orbital cellulitis. Then this is another important cause of orbital cellulitis, that is known as fungal orbital cellulitis. Fungal orbital cellulitis carries a high mortality rate in immunosuppressed patients, like patients who are diabetic, who have got malignancies, who have got chronic renal disease. They are going to suffer from this fungal orbital cellulitis. Mucormycosis is rapid in onset, presents with pain, lid edema, proptosis, visual loss, and give rise to orbital apex syndrome. Aspergillosis is much slower in onset and results in chronic proptosis and decreased vision due to chronic fibrosis and non-necrotizing granulomatous process. It may lead to thrombosing arteritis and nasal and palatal ischemic necrosis. See this one, this is ischemic necrosis, gangrene, this black area. So it can cause gangrene of the nasal structures, or it can cause palatal ischemia. See this one, always you have to ask the patient, you are suspecting fungal orbital cellulitis, and if you see this black scar, you have to ask the patient to open the mouth, and you have to see the palate also. As far as the epidemiology is concerned, an increased incidence of orbital cellulitis in winter is seen because of increased incidence of sinusitis in cold weather. It is twice as common in male than females. In children, no difference in frequency in adults. It is more common in children aged 7 and 12 years. The patient will come to you usually in the ER with history of fever, malaise, recent sinusitis, and upper respiratory tract infection. There will be history of recent facial trauma or surgery, dental work, or infection elsewhere in the body. Proptosis and ophthalmoplegia are the cardinal signs of orbital cellulitis. So the main difference between the orbital cellulitis and the preseptal cellulitis is that in preseptal cellulitis there is no proptosis and extraocular movements are full, while in cases of orbital cellulitis there is proptosis, that is bulging of the eyeballs, and there is ophthalmoplegia, there is loss of ocular movements. The patients cannot move the eye, and see this one here, there is proptosis, significant proptosis, and patient cannot move the eye. The common variable signs are conjunctival chemosis. Here, see this one is chemosis, pain on eye movements, orbital pain, tenderness, decreased vision because of optic nerve compression, and elevated intraocular pressure. There can be purulent nasal discharge in these patients because this orbital cellulitis, as I told you earlier, is most common in patients who have got sinusitis. This is the differential diagnosis which we have to keep in mind. Just remember these things. There can be cavernous sinus thrombosis, which can be unilateral or bilateral, and it is basically the thrombosis or clotting of the blood in the cavernous sinus, and it can be caused by chronic inflammation in the orbit or inflammation on the face anywhere. This orbital cellulitis can lead to the cavernous sinus thrombosis. Dysthyroid ophthalmos, we can see this, there is enlargement of the muscles. So, and there is another condition which is known as idiopathic inflammation, that can also be that should also be considered, and there can be a neoplasm, a malignancy also. So this is the differential diagnosis: cavernous sinus thrombosis, dysthyroid exophthalmos, idiopathic inflammation, and neoplasm. So we have to take these things into consideration before labeling the patient as a case of orbital cellulitis. Orbital cellulitis can be complicated by ocular complications because of the proptosis. There is bulging of the eyeball, and there can be exposure keratopathy. You can see this area, there is loss of epithelium, there is raised intraocular pressure, which can lead to central retinal artery occlusion or central retinal vein occlusion. There can also be endophthalmitis and optic neuropathy. Then there are certain intracranial complications that can lead to meningitis, brain abscess. As I told you earlier, this orbital cellulitis can lead to cavernous sinus thrombosis. Then there is subperiosteal abscess formation, and this is basically this can basically, like here, see this one here, this is the orbit, and here it is causing, you know, the lifting of the periosteum. This is subperiosteal abscess in the orbit. Okay, so it can lead to the subperiosteal abscess. It can lead to the orbital abscess also formation. How we are going to manage these patients? What lab investigations we are going to do to label the patient as a case of orbital cellulitis? We have to do different lab studies in which we do complete blood count, blood cultures, purulent material assessment, and we have to assess any material obtained directly from the sinuses or from the orbital abscess. And we need to do the lumbar puncture if meningeal and cerebral signs develop in patients having orbital cellulitis. Imaging studies are very important in these cases. We have to do high resolution control and contrast CT scan, brain and orbit, including axial and the coronal views. This one is coronal views, so this goes with the coronal sutures. Axial views should include low narrow cuts of the frontal lobe to rule out peridural or parenchymal brain abscess formation. Coronal views determine the presence and extent of any periorbital abscess. MRI is helpful in defining orbital abscess and evaluating the possibility of cavernous sinus thrombosis. How we are going to treat? The patient should be hospitalized until afebrile and improved clinically. Medical management alone is successful in many cases. We have to give broad spectrum intravenous antibiotic, and it should be started for 1 to 2 weeks, followed by oral antibiotics for additional 2 to 3 weeks. Fungal infections require IV antifungal therapy along with the surgical debridement. If we think there is orbital abscess formation or subperiosteal abscess formation, So these are the indications for the drainage of the orbital abscess. A decreased in the vision, if it occurs quickly, an afferent pupillary defects develops, proptosis progresses despite appropriate antibiotic therapy. Consider orbital surgery with or without sinusotomy in every case of subperiosteal abscess or intraorbital abscess. Surgical debridement is indicated in cases of fungal infection. Canthotomy and cantholysis is performed on emergency basis if an orbital compartment syndrome is diagnosed. Thank you so much.